this is a masterclass that we are having on product management, and who better than our keynote speaker for today, Ashank Bhandari. Ashank is Vice President Product Management at Toothsy Skinsy, and he's worked with Amazon as well as Flipkart. He's from ISP. Along with that, what I really love about Ashank's profile is the fact that he is apt. Why? For product management, because he's a theater practitioner. He's been a professional theater practitioner since 2006. He's bootstrapped and led 2 theater troupes, which have actually performed internationally as well and have also won many productions. Besides that, he is an engineer. He later became a product manager. And a beautiful thing, the virtue of empathy, which is so critical, storytelling, empathy, so critical for product management, because Ashank has worked in big, large MNCs, certain smaller setups as well. So perfect apt person coming in, a practitioner coming in and sharing his experiences with all of you. Ashank, I will let you spearhead the entire conversation. Really looking forward to learning and taking down a certain very key critical takeaways from this product management masterclass. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Nija, for that. Always a pleasure to come back and interact with folks as a part of the Masters Union program. I also had the privilege of visiting the campus last month, and I had a great time also interacting with the current cohort that's there. And, it's really good to see so many interested folks in the space of product management. I call myself an accidental product manager, primarily because of the kind of experiences that I've had. Like Nija said, there have been a few things that I have tried my hand at. Started as an engineer from Bangalore because I'm from Bangalore. That's what you do first, and then you figure out what you truly want to do in life. I then had a chance to sort of work with a bunch of different spaces before I found a calling in product management. Right. So I think it's been a very accidental journey for me before I even discovered that something called product management existed. And it's really encouraging and very exciting to see, close to 30 odd folks having to spend a Monday evening to just hear about what product management is and maybe pick up a thing or two, right? So I think that's always a source of energy and excitement for me. So thank you for facilitating this and putting it together. Before we begin, I think, we do have folks who are from different parts of the country, which is very exciting to see. Not surprised that Bangalore has a significant number of people. I'm from Bangalore, and it's always good to meet fellow Bangaloreans. What I would also like to learn from the crowd is if you can just type in, what is it that you do? Are you an engineer? Are you a designer? What do you do? Like, just so that I have a sense of the average profile or the people that I'm talking to, that will help me also calibrate. All right, we have folks who are studying. We have MBA students. All right, thank you. I'll just give it 30 seconds before I pull up a small little presentation for today. All right, so we have folks who are MBA students, project managers, automobile engineer, very interesting, sales folks, engineer again, folks from the health sector, that's very, folks who are in the visual space, engineers again, B.Tech, product analysts, business analysts, some folks from marketing, PBA. All right, very interesting spread. I do see a slight inclination towards the tech side. Some of you are in the management side. I see some very interesting profiles as well, some from the health space, 1 or 2 folks from sales and marketing and visual artists. Very cool. All right. I think I got the sense of it. Thanks everybody for sharing. Very excited to be a part of this cohort. I'll just quickly start with, folks have helped me put this together. This is basically a view of, I wouldn't call this like a deck on product management, while the name Product Management 101 could be misleading. It's not that if you go through this, you're going to emerge being a supreme product manager. This only means that it's more of a conversation guide that helps me channelize and focus the conversation around a set of central ideas, key ideas that would be good to keep in mind as you are contemplating. Perhaps some of you are on the fence, some of you have decided. I saw a few of you being product analysts, some of them product interns, if product management is for you or not, right? So that could be one of the things that you're thinking about. The others are, of course, there's Masters Union, and they have put together this very interesting concoction of industry-led product management sessions, which is also very interesting. Maybe you are, on the fence of thinking around those lines. So maybe this session will help us understand those things a little bit more, and we'll take it forward as we get along this set of slides that are to follow. The picture of mine here looks like picked up from Aadhaar card, but that's just how it is. Yes, I'm currently the VP of product at a health tech startup called as Tootsie. Tootsie and Skinsy are one of the pioneers in their own spaces when it comes to oral and skincare, a range of products and services. We recently raised Series C round of funding about 3 weeks ago, and very excited to see the strides that we are taking in this space, especially Tootsie, where we are market leaders when it comes to invisible teeth aligners, which is one of the products, along with a bunch of others. Prior to this, I have worked with companies like Amazon and Flipkart as a product manager, where I had the formal designation of a product manager. Prior to which, I worked with a bunch of different startups. The Z that you see there is one of the key areas where I picked up product management as a skill set without knowing that I was actually a product manager. That's Lazaro, which is a small marketing and design startup based out of Bangalore. I also started my humble beginnings as a software engineer at HP, which is the last symbol that you see there. What we'll be looking to cover here is my journey into product management. Introduction. This is while you would have come across plenty of literature that already talks about product management, but this would probably be my version of around product management and how you can go about the entire concept. The skills, I think this would be the key aspect, where this is based on my interactions with industry veterans, my own interactions across a host of different companies, different shapes and sizes of companies, around what are the skill sets, of which one of them is also a mindset that helps you be a rockstar PM. We also have a small section where I'd like to interact with some of you folks, do some hands-on product thinking, where I've kept WhatsApp as one of the apps, and I'll get to why later. But that's just one of the things that I'm looking forward to. And then I'd like to reserve some time for question and answers for me, as well as other folks who are part of this session. ABC of my early career, I think ABC fits in very well. There's acting, there's Bangalore, and there's coding. Like Neja was speaking about, I started while I was part of my undergrad itself. I had started theater professionally. This is live theater, mostly conventional proscenium format. I also moved into a slightly unconventional format called as radical mime. So a bunch of friends and I co-founded a theater team, and we toured a bunch of different cities through other troupes. And my engagement with basically being a part of the theater circuit, I also got to travel internationally, featured on national television, did a bunch of ads, corporate films, and so on and so forth. Throughout, while I did attempt at making acting a full-time profession, at different points in time, it just wasn't sustainable. And constantly the challenge that I had was, how do I still channelize my creative instincts and my creative abilities along with, let's just say, cognitive and intellectual abilities, and find like a nice middle ground between the two? After many years and after joining a bunch of dots is where product management sort of fit in beautifully into that, one central ecosystem. Bangalore, it's the core of where I've been born and brought up here. My entire education, everything was here, except for the 1 year where I was in Hyderabad. So this was when I pursued my full-time MBA at the Indian School of Business, ISB Hyderabad, which incidentally is also very close by to Bangalore. So for all practical purposes, I was still in Bangalore. And of course, coding, the early stages of my career, I was in the space of coding for close to 7 years. While the first 4 years, it was full-time. And the next 3 years, while I continued to be coding and I was architecting a bunch of different platforms, I slowly started shifting towards product management, along with, of course, balancing my other avatars of being a theater performer, of being a corporate trainer, and a bunch of other things. So this, in a nutshell, were early glimpses of my career. Cut to post ISB. At ISB is where I discovered that there's something called as product management. I didn't know that, to quote in Hindi, that समाज में इसका ऐसा कुछ इज्जत है, right? Where people like me, where I identified to have a bunch of different skills. While I was good at some of them, I was good enough in some of them. The fact that I was able to walk across multiple universes and yet find a middle grounding, keeping the objective towards a certain goal. Much later did that correction happen, that the goal was around customers and a few more things which we'll see in the follow-up slides. But essentially that focus and channelization happened as I was discovering more about this vocation called product management at ISB. I had a campus placement at Flipkart where I started, I was one of the lead product managers in Flipkart's search product. In my opinion, it's easily one of the most interesting and fascinating problem statements a product manager can solve for, especially at the scale of Flipkart. It was just pure joy. I was with the team for about that specific team for about 1.5 years. I also got to work on a few other projects, for example, books and precious jewelry, as two categories from the lens of a product manager end-to-end customer journey, right from how do you create, what are the reasons why customers would even think of a platform like Flipkart for these categories, right from driving them to the platform, to engaging with them, to understand what are their key decision-making levers, and then helping them take decisions to their post-purchase journey. One of the other things I did with Flipkart was I was part of the core discovery. So most of the work that I've done as a product manager has been on the consumer side of the story, more on the user-facing side, apps, and within that, it is discovery and engagement. These are the two broad areas that I've focused my efforts on. So at Flipkart, that's what happened. I was part of the core discovery team for Flipkart's B2B platform. So as part of the launch team there, I also worked on enabling search for a platform which now doesn't exist anymore. It was called Too Good. So toogood.com was another platform that I got to work on with Flipkart. Cut to Amazon. Amazon, I joined and moved out during the pandemic. I was leading India product for a particular product called as Found It on Amazon. Think of it like an Instagram meets Pinterest feed like experience where customers can come for product inspiration ideas when they come across influencer content and their products tagged to it. Very interesting problem statement space. Serendipity had a calling, and I met a couple of interesting people who work with Tutsi, and that's a long story, but I finally found a calling at Tutsi. I've been working with them for about 4 months now, so I'm still new, but I think a startup like experience has been very rewarding and very exciting and challenging. And that's an area that I'm, as a problem solver, I love the challenges that are currently there in these two spaces. So that's just a little bit about me. All right, so quickly moving on to demystifying product management. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard, for those who have just done a basic looking around, you would have seen these classic Venn diagrams of UX and something else and something else, and you are in the center. There are some diagrams, or there are some schools of thought that calls you the CEO of the product. While I think all of that is partly true, there have been very few representations of a product management. And like I said, I discovered product management by accident. So for me, it was when I finally came across multiple diagrams, this one particular version, I think, resonated most because for me, it was very practice driven product management acquisition for myself. And when I saw this diagram, the years and years of practice that I had of doing what I did, this sort of resonated well with it. Right. So when you demystify product management, firstly, let's just understand what are the three different players, on the table right now. First and foremost, and I'll start with, the one which is on the bottom left, almost representing the origin, users and customers. They are, will, and always be at the center of any product management's life cycle, thought process, psyche, recruitment criteria, everyday job working. This is always going to be at the center. They represent that set that have a particular problem statement. Now, this problem statement could be something that either those users or customers have directly expressed, or as intelligent visionaries, either working with business teams, with the founders, or you yourselves as product managers, are able to find what that gap is and are able to solve for it. Right. So this is the group that we're solving for. On the right-hand side, there is the business team. Right. So these are your sales, marketing, legal. These are the ones that help provide the tailwinds to a product manager's journey. They are the folks who largely take care of the P&L management of the site. Right? So this while I'm simplifying it in a otherwise realistic scenario, they do play a lot of roles, but I'm simplifying it to just basic these things: P&L management, sales, marketing, etc. That's what they do. And then, of course, on the top, there is, not that this represents any hierarchy, but essentially another set of people who are the developers. Now, developers consist of engineers, designers. There are a few more, which is quality analysts. There are folks who are in the data analysis space. They all belong to one group, one discipline of people. and the product. At the one connecting entity among these three, players is the product. This is the center of the attention. This is either a physical product, a software product, whatever, but this is the product that connects this. And the role that a product manager plays is basically filling in the gaps, right? And the beauty of this diagram is that it nicely represents the fact that many a times product managers walk into unknown territories where there is a lack of clarity, there is chaos. It is the ability of a product manager to understand the situation, think about the various factors and forces at play, create a framework, and help bring a certain structure to the chaos. You can't take the chaos away, but you can at least channelize it by putting a structure around it. And that's what a product manager does. And I think this diagram sort of nicely represents this. All right, so moving quickly to what are the skills that makes you a rockstar PM? And like I said, there's no silver bullet, nor is it that if you're able to master all of these skills or most of these skills, this is it. There could be more based on the evolution. I think we are at a cusp, unlike engineering, which is, more than 100 years old in terms of a discipline. Product management as a discipline has evolved, being shaped as we speak, especially in a country like India, where there is so much more diversity. There, we are at this particular phase in which there are more flavors now being added. While there was a generic product manager labeled as a PM throughout, I think there has been an evolution in the very role. What you see here is that it's a majority of the skill sets which will help you sort of be a rockstar PM. Intentionally, this is restricted to software-based products only, not necessarily B2B, but essentially any kind of software products. But you can apply similar principles to any other industry or domain. For this conversation, we've restricted it to software-based products, right? But before we go there, here's a question for those who follow cricket, who like cricket, or who basically just keep track in some shape or form. Who's the best of them all? I'll just call out the names for those who are unfamiliar with pictures. So there's Jacques Kallis, there's Sachin Tendulkar, Muralidharan, Muttiah Muralidharan, there's Virat Kohli, there's Dhoni, there's John T. Rhodes, there's Glenn McGrath, and there's Ravindra Jadeja. So according to you, who is the best of the lot? I see Kallis, I see Jacques Kallis again, Dhoni, best cricketer, Dishant, best of them all in terms of best cricketer. Sachin, okay. Venkat has a very diplomatic answer, which is everyone is unique, okay. Nitin says Dhoni. I see fans here. Dhoni hands down, all right. A lot of Dhoni lovers. Arvind has gone down the Dravid road, all right, even though not listed. Dhoni, Virat and RCB, all right. Bangalore represent. A lot of you are saying Dhoni, all right. Someone saying Virat, all right. I like one of the questions that Dishant asked, which is, best in what, right? A good question to this particular, a good follow-up question to the question that I posed, picturing 8 of the most stalwart cricketers who I have followed, grown up watching, worship some of them. They're just phenomenal cricketers. I think if I had to pick a scenario which is, firstly playing local versus international, if you pick up statistics of these cricketers, they have fairly different statistics when you look at it local versus international, and so on and so forth. So when you take a more generic context, a more utilitarian and a more, Uber level context, according to me, the best cricketer of the lot that I showed here was Jacques Kallis, which some of you, of course, highlighted. Now, why is it that I think it's Jacques Kallis, and why, a lot of other for people who follow cricket, why is it that they prefer Jacques Kallis? Is because he was one of the greatest of all times when it came to being a batsman, being a bowler, adapted to multiple formats of the game, be it Test cricket, of course, ODI, T20. He adapted his bowling style, his bowling abilities, worked on his fitness, was a decent fielder too. And of course, if you look at the current playing cohort of this lot, hands down Ravindra Jadeja. Again, going back to the fact that these particular set of players, basically whom we call as all-rounders in cricket, they are a captain's delight, right? Some of them are, they open batting, but most often than not, they are somebody who will come down 3 down, 4 down. They might pick up bowling second or third. They chip in into the field. They're great strategists. They understand the game very well. And like I said, they're always a captain's delight. and in some shape and form are always relevant to the game. A batsman's not having key batsman's not having a good day, gets out in the first few balls. Basically, what happened with Virat this entire IPL season. And there's not so much that you can contribute to the game as much as an all-rounder is constantly relevant and is constantly adapting to multiple skill sets. I understand specialist bowlers and batsmen also adapt to different pitches and skill sets, but think of it from a captain's point of view, right? It's always a delight to have somebody always at your disposal who's able to fill in into the gaps at multiple spaces. And in my opinion, what is equivalent to an all-rounder in cricket is the equivalent to a product manager in the space of corporates in the way of the ways of modern ways of building products and building customer delight, right? So while I quickly touched upon cricket as an example, I'll go down to the skill sets that I have been able to distill down based on experiences and what I have seen across the industry. I think first and foremost, you'll never hear me stop talking about how important stakeholder management is for product management. In my opinion, it's one of the most underrated skill sets. I know there are a lot of questions that some of you have, even without knowing most of you, is that, hey, should I come from an IT background? What books do I read? Should I do a course in data analytics? Do I need to know design well? Yes, the answer to that is all of that is relevant. Something which people don't talk about often is stakeholder management. Stakeholder management is the ability to talk to multiple different stakeholders, people who come from different disciplines, understand their point of view, and try and find the greatest common denominator, try and urge the entire cohort towards finding the greatest common denominator when it comes to the solution, while keeping one thing in mind, which is something that we'll get to shortly. But essentially, in my view, stakeholder management, extremely critical. That doesn't mean you need to be a great people's person, but it helps if you are, given how critical this is. Ruthless prioritization. As a product manager, one of the things, given that you are talking to different disciplines, so if you go back to that diagram, those three blocks that are there, each of them are going to have different set of expressed needs, wants. As a product manager, you are constantly thinking and are creating your own list of needs and wants. And you end up always having a very large list and long list of things to do. Having a sense and ability to ruthlessly prioritize and only pick up those which are going to give maximum benefit in the short, medium, and long term is a key skill of a product manager. This, I think, is, like I said, I'm going to come back to one aspect, keeping the customer always in the center of every single decision that you're taking, right? I think a relentless customer advocate is what I define as a product manager. It doesn't matter which situation you are in. If it means not agreeing with business teams on certain things, so be it. Not agreeing with designers on certain things, so be it. Not agreeing with coders and developers on certain things, so be it. Constantly optimizing and keeping the customer in the center of things. Being able to articulate why something needs to be built. Again, this is one of the factors in prioritization, but often product managers are mistaken to be those breed of people who are feature machines. The focus goes by a lot of times. What gets glorified is what gets built, how it was done, the difficulties and the journey it was taken. But the core skill set of a product manager would be centered around being able to clearly articulate for yourself and then to others why something needs to be done. And quite often I have found that if good product managers who are great at this particular skill set are able to handle the first one with ease, because it then doesn't become your opinion versus mine, but around what the customer wants and then solving for it or what's best for the customer. Process optimization, one of those skills which are good to have, again, depends on the kind of company that you're joining. You constantly have an eye for getting better and better at certain things and optimizing for time and other metrics that you're optimizing for. Presentation skills, this goes without saying. If you're working a lot with stakeholders, if articulation is something that you need to be focused on, you need to have great presentation skills, which could involve presentation as in terms of vocal skills, in terms of what you're presenting, show and tell, your ability to write gorgeous documents, which is product requirements documents, also called as PRDs. So presentation, verbal, non-verbal communication, presentations like this, decks, or it could be documents which are meant for engineers or analysts. Leadership, again, this is probably much more advanced in your career, where handling a team of product managers. So basically, you are a people manager of a group of product managers who are handling a lot of people. So there is a much more degree of nuance when it comes to leadership. Innovation, according to me, innovation is creativity within constraints, is how I define innovation. And as somebody who constantly has the eyes and ears peeled on the customer, if you are abreast with technologies, if you're abreast with the current state of your team and what's possible and what's not, innovation becomes a habit. Innovation becomes a driving force. It becomes your joy, your elixir into everyday handling of things. Right. So with that, I'll just keep this on for a couple of seconds more. These are what I have found as common traits to be a rockstar PM in any given environment or company. Are all of them important? Yes. But I think there are three factors that one needs to keep in mind in order to sort of figure which of these skill sets that you can be more mindful of. And the three factors are, what is the nature and the stage of the company? Stage as in, is it early stages of the company, later stages, mid-sized company, IPO, post IPO, and so on and so forth. Second, what is the specific project or the initiative or the problem statement that you're working on? And third, within that problem statement, what is the current status or the stage of the problem statement, right? Or the product build that's there. Based on that, these skill sets will be sort of calibrated up and down, right? So it's not that all of them are equally important in terms of weightage. The answer would be that it depends on all the three factors that I said. Okay, moving on to, I'll just quickly breeze past these slides. These are just for you to get a nutshell sense of some of the offerings which the mastercamp of product management involve. Common set of questions that we come across, which is, do I come from an IT background? Yes. Do I have higher chances? No. Can I do PM? While I'll just pick IT background as one, and some of the other follow-up slides, the answer remains pretty much the same. My response to this would be, is it an advantage if you come from an IT background? Yes, it is an advantage, but it's not a disadvantage if you're not, which means the skill sets that are needed in order for you to be a good product manager is not necessarily coding skills. As long as you are able to have a meaningful conversation with the engineers, developers, and you have a working knowledge of some of the software principles and practices, you should be good to go. Some of them that are highlighted in the yellow box below, fundamentals like data structures, algorithms, function calls, APIs, software architectures, very basics around bug fixing. You should easily be able to shine and do well as a product manager. And the more time you spend with your team and tech team, you only get better and better at this. Right. Having said that, I'd probably like to sort of superimpose the answer and direction of thought to all of the other things like data background. If you come from a data background, yes, you do have a slight advantage, but no disadvantage if you don't. The skills that are needed in order for you to be a good PM are easily, it's something that you can easily acquire. And, some of them are highlighted below, basics of data management, SQL, and so on and so forth. Similar to design, as long as you have basic understanding of UX, UI, some of the basic heuristic principles, being able to articulate customer journeys and mapping, and building basic wireframes, I think this should be sufficient. Customer research, I personally thoroughly enjoy this particular space. It's your window into being a customer advocate, which is if you're able to strike a conversation with customers without asking leading questions, being at the center of understanding just their world, their universe, and then being able to build profiles around it. That's a great skill set to have. So basically, your market research and user research abilities. That's where I would place it. All right, with that, we'll quickly move to the small case that I said that we will be moving towards. While I know I spoke about WhatsApp, at least the first slide that I had, we did reveal that we would be, working on something in the space of WhatsApp. What I'd like all of you to do, and I've picked WhatsApp because it's probably one of the most relatable products I think within the space of mobile phones, after of course, the ability to call customers, to call your friends, family, etc. One of the features, one of the products which has revolutionized the way we connect with each other, apart from social media, has easily been WhatsApp. I'd like to understand from the cohort here, anybody who doesn't use WhatsApp or hasn't used WhatsApp before. I'm sure you would be using other apps as well, like Telegram and so on and so forth. But anybody who doesn't currently use WhatsApp or hasn't used WhatsApp in the past? I'll just give it 5 seconds. Yeah, unlikely, right? Very unlikely that you'll come across anybody who hasn't. So because of the relevance of that, I just thought it'll be good to pick WhatsApp. So here's what I'd like you to do. Each of the 70 odd folks who are tuned in on this call today, I'd like you to think that you are the chief product officer for WhatsApp India, specifically India, and you have thought about this great idea. Don't put anything on the chat yet. Ayush, if we can just help with sharing the link in the chat box. What we've done is we've put together a simple Google Sheet. What I'd like you to do is to just click on this Google Sheet. There are two columns here. There's one which is a name, and then there is a pitch, right? So column B, Ayush, you might have to enable edit access to folks. I'm not sure if people have edit access to it. What I've written as the second column, which is pitch, is imagine a hypothetical situation that you've met Mark Zuckerberg at the office in India or in US, and you have about roughly 2 minutes of his attention, 1.5 to 2 minutes of his attention in an elevator, and you are, just making a pitch to him. Right. So in your narrative that you're going to be putting on the Google Sheet, you can pitch it as, hey, Mark, I have an idea, or here's what I'm thinking, and whatever is it that however you want to phrase it. Essentially, just think of just 2 or 3 sentences to describe any idea, any feature that you would like to build, something that doesn't already exist on WhatsApp, that you would like to build for WhatsApp, right? You could probably restrict to WhatsApp India just for the sake of conversation and to keep your scope limited. Just write there in a sentence or two what feature you would like to build and pitch. You can write your name, and you can also write what's the pitch that you have. I see a few very interesting ideas already coming in. I like Pranshu, who's stuck to a script of actually making a pitch. Good job. Very interesting set of initiatives. Fantastic ideas. Folks are talking about news detection. Some of you are talking in the space of engagement. Some are talking about, I'm just categorizing them into spaces. Some are talking about productivity improvement in the workspace. Yeah, task reminders and productivity improvement, community-like features, engagement features. For those of you who are finding it hard to edit, you can also just drop it here. I'll just save some trouble for you. And if just, the handful of you who are not able to access for whatever reason, you can just drop it in the chat box here and I can pick it up from there as well. I hope all of you are also going through what some of your friends and colleagues are sharing here as inputs, and you'll just understand the diversity of thoughts that people are bringing in. While Pranjal has also volunteered to have a chat with us, I will pick one more person, but I will just get to that shortly. I'm just going through the chat as well. I think Gloria has some few glorious stories to share for the feature that she just spoke about. All right, one of them that really caught my attention was what Gaurav shared. Gaurav, I'll come to you. Rest, I'm loving the inputs and all of the features that are coming in. Please keep it going while I engage in conversation. Pranjal, since you started off,
Yes.
So let's do this. I'm Mark. Like, if you can come on video, that would be great too. I'm Mark. You're the CPO for WhatsApp India, and we've just met at the elevator. And why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, Mark. Pranjal here, the CPO from India.
Yes,
and
hi, we've met.
Yes. So, I just want to highlight a few things that have been going on in India. And this is some feature that I feel that needs to be added to WhatsApp, which is the fake news detector. If from the app or some messages which are circulating, whether it is politically influenced or something related to, whatever the situation is accordingly, like someone's death is happening or something that way, and this affects people who are basically in the age range which is higher than 40 years. So if we could, if you could add tag to the messages which are being forwarded, like it is fake news detected, it will be something which will be beneficial for the consumer in terms of I feel the trust, the mutual relationship that we have.
Pranjal, I don't mean to cut you, but
yes,
as you know, Meta Group, there are hundreds of projects and there's always limited number of engineers that we have. While I think it's an interesting problem that you've shared, I'm not convinced of the advantage of having a feature like this. We've tried a few things in Facebook. it's given us a sort of lukewarm response. I'm not sure why we should be looking to invest specifically in WhatsApp for WhatsApp.
Okay, so yeah, so what I feel is, Mark, with the ongoing debate that goes on related to privacy and everything, I feel that this would be something that would set us apart from the competitors who promise privacy. Now, when it comes to privacy, I know that there is encryption and all those data encryption
We
keys
have
that we
top of the
have.
line privacy.
But I also feel that this might be the one which will help us being in the thought leadership era, where we might be, as Meta stands for innovation, for being there for the consumers, right? So this might be one point where we could have that emotional connect as well, showing how we are not just here for advertisements, we are here for caring for the users as well. So I feel when it comes to CRM part, that means the relationship with the consumers, I feel this might be one thing that might influence the consumer to take us or choose us between the other competitors in the market.
Got it. Thanks, Manjal. I think I've reached the floor that I should be heading at. Thanks for the idea. Let me just think about this and I'll get back to you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranjal. Thanks. So that was Pranjal. Thanks, Pranjal, for volunteering and doing this. Folks on the chat, please stop using the Google Sheet now. You can let go of that. On chat, just drop, if you are Mark, just put in a yes, no, maybe, if this caught your attention, and maybe a little bit about why. Just why do you think this caught your attention, didn't work for you? It would be great if we can provide some feedback to Pranjal, live feedback. No stories, please, just one or two sentences at best, a few words would be great. Meanwhile, I'll switch to Gaurav. Gaurav, same situation. We just met. I'm Mark. We're at the elevator. Your time starts now.
Hi, Mark. This is Gaurav from Bangalore. And
you've met.
The reporting supervisors. However, I believe that most of the chats were happening in the offices, but one is not willing to, carry this chatterbox in their phone at their homes as well. So here I'm introducing a new feature. I wanted to pitch my idea. If we could add a feature based on geofencing, which could take the location of your warehouse as well as your office, and when you enters in that affinity, then only you will get started. You will get the messages from the respective teams, and as soon as you left the premises, so you are free to move with your life. So,
got it. So Gaurav, you're essentially solving for colleagues at work and not really friends and family. Perhaps, that's the center of the customer base that we have, but you make an interesting point about colleagues at work. What's your take, Gaurav? I have just about 5 seconds more to go, but what's your take on, we are now moving towards a hybrid way of working. How relevant do you still think this is? Because people are definitely not going to be under the same geofencing and yet would still be colleagues wanting to interact with each other. How relevant do you think it is? You have 5 seconds.
Well, I believe that it is not important every time to be connected with your colleagues. And sometimes it may happen like you need to face text and a lot of junk in your chat box, which is quite irrelevant to you. So if you want to skip that,
Awesome. Thanks, Gaurav. I'll think about this and get back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. So, what is interesting about both Pranjal and Gaurav is, and in fact, most of you, when I went through the entire Google Sheet and the few ones that I'm seeing on chat, and please also for Gaurav, just reply with a yes, no, maybe with a short answer as to why in the chat here. Interestingly, both of them started from the space of insight. It wasn't because I think the feature is cool. I think as an engineer it's good, but you represented a certain customer profile. For example, Gaurav started for him, mentally he pictured a group of colleagues. Maybe this is coming from his own personal experience where there are plenty of WhatsApp groups and he's just frustrated with those many that are there and he's looking to solve for it, right? Pranjal, you come from a space of where you've encountered a lot of forwards and you've seen an impact in and the kind of WhatsApp university aspect that's being floating around and how a lot of fake news leads to a lot of people taking actions, right? It came from a space of insight, being able to articulate and understand, here is the profile that I'm solving for, here's how large the problem is, here is the impact if I'm able to launch this particular feature, and here's how I'm able to measure it. For example, Pranjal, for you, you could have started with one of the things that out of the mishaps that happened in a widespread population like India, we are close to, I think, 1 billion internet users and XYZ number of WhatsApp, etc. Based on that, there have been close to, I'm guessing 5,000, 10,000 mishaps that have happened in the year, somewhere trailing back to WhatsApp or Facebook and social media and all of our group of products, where it was because of circulation of fake news. And the metric that I'm trying to chase is the reduction in this, so that we are responsible intermediates, even though we are facilitators of communication, right? Just that insight and drive towards here is what we are trying to build for. And likewise for Gaurav, right? Like you can extrapolate it. A similar like activity is something that I will be conducting for about 2.5 hours as a part of the MasterCamp. Of course, this was meant to be just a teaser meant for you to just understand and think from the point of view of the reason why this was intentionally an elevator pitch is because you really need to constrict it down to understanding and articulating why you're solving for something, something that I just highlighted in the key skill sets of a product manager. And you would have come across in the entire presentation or in the entire list that there are so many intelligent solutions. But the solution that tends to work is something that understands the psyche or the emotions of the customer. In that way, a good product manager is somebody who I have often seen and encountered tends to have a better EQ and not necessarily a great IQ, right? So if you're somebody who's able to find a balance between the two, you'll do delightfully well. But what I've also found is that IQ is important, but EQ helps you climb the ladder faster because that's just the nature of what a product manager is and does. As a product manager, we focus on the why rather than the how and when and what we're supposed to do. Having absolute clarity and conviction of the problem statement that you're solving for. And I'm just going back to some of the examples that we took, in conversations with Pranjal and Gaurav. And essentially, towards the end, if you go back to the first diagram that we had highlighted, the close to origin triangle, which was the users and customers, we're solving for everybody, right? For users, for business, for team, and definitely for yourself, right? So I just, on that note, in terms of key takeaways from the few conversations that I've had the privilege of having with you and some insights that I've been able to share, I'd now hand it over to Nija and Ayush for explaining more about the bootcamp and any of the other things moving forward. I'm going to stick around, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them maybe towards the end, or Ayush and team will be able to take it forward. I look forward to seeing all of you, if not majority of you, during the MasterCamp sessions. I've personally had a great time being a part of the faculty there and just sort of sharing my insights from the industry, as well as a few, hands-on case study based way of working. So I'm looking forward to meeting some of you there and wishing all of you the best in your journey as aspiring product managers. Thanks, folks.
Thank you so much, Ashank, for the rather informative session. And of course, I think the live case study, the way that we were participating, really solidified the key takeaways that we had during the beginning of the conversation. Well, just like Ashank was saying, we are going to be having a placement-focused product management master camp starting very soon, where you have masters like Ashank himself coming in, making sure that, it's not just a sort of a monologue in which you're learning, but you are participating. And also it's a practitioner-run class that we are having as a part of the master camp. We are going to be conducting a separate info session as well, an admissions info session for the product management bootcamp. Here, of course, I'd really love that all of you should ideally just quickly jot down your takeaways. It'll be great, very helpful if any one of you wants to probably share it on the chat box. What were your key takeaways from the master camp? Anything that resonated with you? Are you going to be taking this particular career option very seriously, or anything that changed your mind? It'll be great to see one or two of you mentioning the takeaways. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Any one of you could probably take the chat box and mention their key takeaways. That'll be very helpful for all of us. Otherwise, feel free to stay in touch with us. I will also, we like I said, we'll be conducting a product management info session as well in the coming days. Ayush, would you like to mention anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think we are good to go. It has always been, great having Ashank with us and taking sessions on product management 101 and multiple other modules that we have as a part of PM MasterCamp. And yes, if students have any doubt, we are already running our cohort one that's active. Term one done, term two has recently started, and we are, since launching the next cohort from July. I think it's a great time for each and every one of you to chip in, to reach out to us and ask as much as queries, that you have regarding product management. And I think, Nirja, I, and the entire team will be more than happy to help you understand what is product management and how can this placement focused MasterCamp and Master Union can help you get into your dream PM jobs.
Right. Thanks so much. To paraphrase, and I think we'd like to end it on that emotional intelligence, empathy, empathizing, very important, advocate, relentless advocate, as Ashank said, of customer advocacy, that is definitely required. Yes, Mayank, we are going to be sharing the link as well. And Gloria, don't worry, our team will get back to you. It'll be very helpful if you could mail us your concern. I don't think that you being an international student should hinder it. But here, I'm just sharing the link as well to the MasterCamp, the placement focused product management MasterCamp. So all of you can actually, just a second, I'm just sharing it on the chat box for all of you. You can register. And Gloria, please mail it to us. We'd be more than happy to help you out. So here's the link. All of you can keep in touch, and we are going to be informing you about the admissions info session as well on product management. And please feel free to visit this particular link. Most of your queries would be sorted via this link. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you so much.